going? Everybody doing good? Happy Tuesday. Talking about hot throw today, which I know is, well, can be a big issue for us candle makers. So I'm just going to offer a few tips today. That's all right with you all. Thanks for tuning in again. We've been doing good with these lives all month. Y'all been holding it down. All right, so hot throw. One thing I do want to start off with, if any of you are natural wax users, hey Paris, I caught you live for the first time. I keep missing your webinars. I've only had one webinar so far, but I've been going live every day. It's been like different times. Again, I told y'all this month was just like random lives this month. I just wanted to connect. That's it. And just talk to y'all outside of comments and DMs and things like that. So, but we're going to talk about hot throw or scent throw. And for those who don't know, scent throw basically describes the strength of a fragrance, right? I know, that can be confusing because some people or some candle makers, we look at it as, we're comparing our candle to, a Bath and Body Works candle. Like, these are one of my candles I was testing, and amazing cold throw when I've been testing it. This is probably after 2 burns so far. And hot throw is great. It's great in terms of what's pleasing to me and the quality for my customers. So one thing I want to start off by saying is what scent throw may be sufficient for me may not be sufficient for you. So y'all see me on my YouTube channel. I've made videos using 6%. I've made videos using 10%. And that comes from me testing different fragrance strengths. So like my masculine scents are pretty hard. And so I can get away with even going as low as 6% if I wanted to. But then a lot of my other fragrances, for example, this one, which is Fig Tree, I like to do a 10% with this. So one thing I want you all to realize is scent throw, the hot throw, that's describing the strength of a fragrance. And it's personal preference, especially when you're working with natural wax. A lot of people say, I see you using 6%, but when I use 6% or when I use 8 or 10%, it's still not giving me what I want. So understand that based on the wax that I use, based on my fragrance load percentage, and what I think is a sufficient scent throw, that's my opinion. That comes from my testing, and that comes from, my nose, right? And a lot of, we are making candles and wax melts all the time. And so one thing you got to think about is sometimes you just got to give your nose a break and get some fresh air, or take a break for like a week or so and then come back and make candles, because sometimes we get immune and numb to fragrances because we're up under it all the time. And sometimes our nose can deceive us a little bit. But there are some things you can do to help your hot throw. But what I do want to say, number one, is it is personal preference. I do not want you all to think that just because I use 10%, you have to. So number one, check and see how much fragrance load your particular wax can hold. So different waxes can hold up to a different level of max fragrance, because then you run into issues, which I've talked about before, where the oil starts to seep out at the top and things like that. It's almost like a rain cloud. I've used that description of a rain cloud, where if it's too much precipitation, the cloud can't hold it and it rains. And it's the same thing with your wax. If it's too much, it's almost like your wax is contracting, and so the remaining fragrances, it seeps out and it looks like little rain droplets on the top of your candle. And then I get questions like, why does my candle look like that? It looks like lumpy tops, or it looks like real oily tops. And it shouldn't look like that. It should look dry. It should just look dry. It should not look like little, like you can literally touch it and it's almost like grease or oil. And so every wax can't hold up to 10 or 12 or even 12%. I know soy wax can hold even up to 12%. So it just depends, but it's your preference, y'all. So don't, my YouTube channel is not gospel. It's Paris's journey. It's Paris's experience. It's I'm giving you what I've learned and what I'm experiencing based on the waxes that I've used and what I find has worked for me. And then I share it with you all. So what you can do is take what you've learned and try to test and apply it to yourself. There's candle makers on YouTube that I followed when I first started, and I've learned a lot from their methods. But now 3 years in, there's things that I do that they don't do because it's my kitchen. I found my sweet spot. I found what works for me. We use different jars. There's candle makers that use ceramic, jars where they don't have to worry about wet spots. They don't have to worry about if their wax is adhering to the jar or not, but I do. So I'm going to put on my channel ways to minimize that, right? So you have to take what you're learning and make it work for you in your kitchen. So that's number one. Understand that fragrance load percentage is personal preference. Test from anywhere from 6 to 10%. And if you're using a wax that can hold even up to 12%, try it. Number two, do not think that just because you add more fragrance oil, it's going to smell stronger. And like I said, it does more harm than good, and your wax won't be able to hold it. So keep that in mind if you're thinking, oh, well, I'll just add more add more fragrance oil. It can actually ruin your wax more so than it can help it, and it won't burn. And it can actually be a hazard because that's where those flash points come in at. Because if there's fragrance droplets sitting here, and if that flame gets too close, you don't want to end up catching a fire just because there's too much fragrance sitting on top of your candle. So you got to be careful about that. Another tip, make sure your scale is accurate. So you all saw that I just upgraded my scale. So I had my kitchen scale that I was using for years. And I actually still use it. I actually still have it. If I don't feel out bringing out my big boy, I'll snag that one. But I upgraded my scale because it was time. I've been using that scale for years. And sometimes your scale can be off and you think that you've measured appropriately and you didn't. So make sure that you have an up-to-date scale. And when I say up-to-date, and just make sure you're not getting inaccurate readings. So, one time you weigh out your fragrance oil and it gives you one reading, and then you try that same formula and it's not giving you the measurements. You go to pour all your candle jars and you're either coming up short or you have too much left over. So that could be off with your scale. Maybe your wax wasn't weighed right and your fragrance oil reading was inaccurate. So putting those two together, the ratio was off. So that's something to think about. So I upgraded to my big boy sitting over here. And I got it from Pro Candle Supply. It's on my candle making supply list in the headquarters. So if you wanted to look at that list is always up to date. And I actually just added some new stuff on there that I just purchased from Amazon. So check out my list. I keep it current with the most updated links if you ever wonder what equipment and stuff I use. Another thing is when you add your fragrance add your fragrance oil, I'm sorry. So there's, most candle suppliers will tell you, on the website, add your fragrance oil right when you pull it off the heat, right at 180, 185. Cool. Like especially as a beginner, I started with all what suppliers told me to do because I'm a beginner and I'm learning. But again, you start to find your sweet spots and you start to find what works for you. And I found with the wax that I use, which is the coconut soy blend, the C6 wax, that adding my fragrance, even when I used 464 at the time, I started adding my fragrance oil at around 160, 165. And I did that because I wanted to minimize my fragrance and my scent throw being burned off. Sorry. That was a delivery. I was just like, who is at my door? It's a delivery. More goodies, more candle stuff. I already know. But anyway, so that 25-degree difference, it makes a big difference. 185 versus 160. It's a nice little difference there. And because I'm pouring at around 140, so once my wax has rested from me mixing, it's at a good temp. So I realized just even pouring adding my fragrance oil at a slightly lower temp has helped kind of reserve that scent throw, if you will. Another thing is stirring. So I've mentioned this before, probably on an earlier live this month. Stirring, I think I don't think it was a live. I think it was one of my Instagram posts where I think as candle makers, we tend to take advantage on how important stirring adequately is. I know it can get tiring, but like, just stir. Sometimes I put on music, I set my timer, and when I'm in a zone, y'all, I'm in the zone. And next thing I know, my 3-minute timer has went off. So just put on some music, and just stir. I stir for at least 3 to 4 minutes. It depends on the fragrance strength that I'm using. A lot of my florals and citrusy scents, I'll stir for probably a little longer, just to make sure. You'd be surprised, ensuring that your wax and oil is fully binded. It makes a big difference. They really need to marry and come together. And then once you set it aside to rest until you pour it in your jars, that formula and everything is working together. And so that goes back to my point where, if your scale could possibly be giving you inaccurate readings, when you're stirring and marrying that ratio and you go to pour it and it didn't exactly come out right like you intended, it could be something off with the formula or the numbers. And so that wax to fragrance oil formula isn't matching, and it could be throwing off your scent throw as well. Curing time. So this varies too. I know people that use soy. When I use soy, I used to let it cure sometimes a week or two, just to kind of maximize that fragrance before I would move it off my shelf. With my coconut soy that I use now, 3 days to a week, it has worked fine for me. I don't have no issues with that, and I like the punch that it gives. And so I keep that in mind when I need to restock and turn over orders. That I'm making sure I'm not only having enough time to make them, but they have time to sit for a few days, and then I can throw them, not throw them in a box, but package them and ship them off for orders. So think about the curing time. Maybe try letting it cure a few more days and see if that helps as well. I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. I know I've got several new subscribers and people who are just now tuning into some of my lives. But your room size matters where you're testing your candle. So again, I've said this in a jokingly way, but I'm for real when I say it. Let's say this was like a candle, right? This is one of my silicone cups that I measure my fragrance oil in. So let's say this was a candle. I'm not going to test this in a living room, right? It's not going to give you the punch you need. This small, I don't even know how much. What is this? 2 ounces. This is just 2 ounces, but you can't measure, not even 2 ounces. This is probably 4 ounces. So this 4-ounce candle is not going to give you a scent in a big old living room. So room size matters. So when it comes to my jars, I always tell people, like, this size jar actually works in our size kitchen, because our kitchen isn't ginormous at all. We have more space out here than we do in our kitchen. So this works well right here in our kitchen on the stove. You can smell it right when you come through our garage door. I burn these in bathrooms, in our office upstairs. So, small to medium-sized bedrooms and things like that. So make sure when you're testing your candles that you keep in mind your size jar and what size room it corresponds in, because that will kind of throw you off and make you feel like your candle isn't packing, giving you what you want. And it could be it's just the room is too large, and so you're making your candle work too hard. And your candle shouldn't work hard. Your candle should just be able to live its life and give you life when you burn it. And so let it give you life in a smaller room that it's intended to be in. Unless it's a 2 wick or a 3 wick, some of those bigger jars where it can handle larger rooms. So keep in mind room size when you're testing it. And then you also want to evaluate your wick. And so wick can play a huge role when the wax and the wick comes together and it's lit. That's a whole fuel marriage that's coming together to in order to release that aroma at the top of the wick. So reevaluate your wick size, also your wick series. So when I first started, I started with Eco Wicks, and I didn't like them. I didn't like the way they burned. I was smelling more smoke than I did scent. And so I use CD wicks now, and I haven't turned back. They work great for my jars, even for my new jars. And it gives me the punch that I need, and it burns a little better for me. And so you can evaluate. It may mean that you need to size down or size up, or just change your wick series completely. And so, that will cause more testing, yes, but as a result, you come out with a quality burning candle. So you want to think about things like that. So I always recommend hitting up your supplier and say, hey, this is the wax that I'm using, or I purchased this wax from you. Do you have 2 wick recommendations that I can, 2 wick recommendations, and then the sizes in each of those series, and test each series and see what you like and see which one is giving you the punch that you need, because wick plays probably one of the most important roles in your ultimately in your scent throw, in your hot throw. Sorry, I'm all tongue twisted today. A lot of work meetings and stuff today, talking a lot today. So those are my tips on hot throw. So those are some things you can try to help increase your hot throw. But at the same time, remember, you are using natural wax. And so naturally is not going to be the candle compared to, say, like a paraffin wax or a paraffin blend type wax. Those are automatically going to give you a punch because of the type of wax it is. So when you're working with natural wax, understand that the properties and the compounds and how, these waxes are manufactured, the scent sometimes can just get lost. And so when it comes to using natural wax, if you want to stay in that natural family and stay organic, or stay, and advertise that your candle line is natural, 100% natural, then you're going to have to learn how to flip that and make that into a positive marketing tactic, which is what I do on my website. I give it all in my product description so customers know exactly what they're getting, how big the candle that they're getting it, the room sizes that I suggest, and then I also let them know, due to our company using 100% coconut soy wax blend, blah 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 blah. So it doesn't have to be a negative. You can absolutely turn that into a positive marketing tactic, because people will pay for natural products. We all know natural and organic is like the thing. So any natural or organic customers are going to appreciate the quality in your candle, and ensure that when they burn it, they're getting a nice, clean, quality burn. And so sometimes that's more favored than having a super strong candle that you can barely take and it gives you a headache. You know what I'm saying? And personally, I like a strong candle, but I also like a candle that just gives me a more calm, light, and airy vibe. Again, my husband is very sensitive to aromas and scents anyway. He has horrible allergies. And so I consider people like him in my product line and in my target market. And so my scents have worked well for my audience. So think about stuff like that as well. So I'm going to go here and see if I have any questions or any comments. I use soy and use no more than 10%. Yep, I did the same thing. I'm in the process of doing my test, but your formula, I'm not understanding. How did you get your calculations to the fill line? So remember, my calculations was based on the jar that I used, and it would take I don't want to take up too much time on the live breaking down the formula. Um, but that was based on the jar that I used. And so I found out my fill line from my candle supplier. So I emailed them and said, hey, what is the net weight or how much wax can the candle hold to the fill line? It's 7 ounces. So I went to Google and said, how many grams is 7 ounces? And it gave it to me. And then I plugged in my numbers using the fragrance soap percentage that I wanted. So that's how I found my fill line. But those were my numbers. So I do explain in my YouTube video that you can't go on my numbers. You have to plug in your numbers because we could be using different size jars and our net weights can be different. Even if you use a 9 ounce jar like I did, the net weight can still be different because not all jars are made the same. So this is a 9 ounce jar as well, but it's not shaped the same as my previous 9 ounce jar. So I had to adjust my formula a little bit and create my own fill line that was comfortable for my wick and my lid. So you have to plug in your numbers. That my video was just giving you a demo based on my examples. Hi, I came on my head at work. But I'm still trying to get a little part of what's going on. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. Those are my little tips and nuggets and gems for hot throw. I know it's a battle, but it's a battle that we'll eventually get over. Like I always encourage candle makers, like once you nail down your formula, that's the most exciting day ever. And make sure you keep good notes and write it down so that way you won't forget your formula and you can replicate that in when you batch out your candles and things like that. And one thing that I do is every time I want to start using a new scent or release a new scent, then I still do testing. So every time I release a new fragrance, I always retest to make sure that it's burning properly. I just don't start with a new fragrance and just use my same formula and then sell it. I always go back to my formula notes, test the new fragrance. I do a full burn test. Like this one, this isn't new. My new one fragrance I was testing over there, but I always do my at least 4 to 5 burn tests to make sure that it's burning properly and it's giving what I need before I even sell it. So keep that in mind before you release new fragrances. When I use your formula, I tested my fill line with the water. It seems it was a little over. Should you test the fill line that way? You can, but I would, yeah, you can, because you're using liquid just like a liquid wax, so you can do it that way. But if that's where your fill line is, you should be able to Google how many ounces or grams that holds and then just convert it and put your numbers into the formula. So you're really just trying to figure out how much wax and fragrance oil can your candle hold when it's combined together. So you however much wax however much your candle can hold total, then you have to separate how much fragrance oil do I need compared to how much wax I need. So when that comes together, it totals how much the candle can hold. So maybe rewatch the video a few times. I've had a couple people be like, I've rewatched it about 2 or 3 times and I think I got it. So just take it slow. And again, Google. I just like using grams. So if grams is confusing, then just keep it in ounces if that helps. But I just like using grams because I can round it to whole numbers or round down to a whole number. And it just makes more sense to me. That it's just how my brain works. So I just like using grams, and my formula works out perfect with my back. Even with this candle that don't have a fill line, I had to create my own fill line to figure it out. So it works fine. So just maybe rewatch it a few times. Again, Google your numbers and then plug it in. Those numbers were my numbers, so they're not going to be what your jar is. Any wooden wick suggestions? I haven't played around with wooden wicks to know too much or give any suggestions just yet. I actually just purchased a starter kit from Wooden Wick Co. Or what is it? Wooden Wick Candle Co. or Wooden Wick Co. And I can't wait to start playing with it so I can start making videos around wooden wicks too and learn more. I've played with wooden wicks before, maybe like a year ago, but haven't done it consistently enough to offer any suggestions just yet. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, y'all. So I hope y'all have a great rest of your Tuesday. And I will talk to y'all in the next one. All right. See y'all later.